Good afternoon, everyone. February 22nd, 2019. So I just came across this article about these people that went all along the border and asked, do they fear these immigrants? And most of them said that, no, we don't fear the immigrants, but what we do fear is more government. And they have good reason to hold this fear. So I'm going to talk to you about why you should fear your government, whether you're a leftist or a right-winger. It does not matter. More than these immigrants. To be sure, some of these immigrants do bring diseases with them. Recently, there was an immigrant trying to enter our country who had smallpox. And others have things like tuberculosis and so on and so forth, right? Some of them come into our country with the intention of inflicting violence on the population. Others come in the country with things like fentanyl and cocaine and heroin and methamphetamines. And you can say those are bad things. It really depends on the way you look at it, right? Of course, violence is always going to be bad unless you're defending yourself. But the thing is, none of these people are even close to being as dangerous as your government. And it doesn't matter what country you live in. But let's take our country, the United States. In this country, the government can legislate your activities into criminality, causing you to be a criminal after some bullshit opinion of theirs gets voted on. And like having high capacity magazines in certain states. One day it was okay to have high capacity magazines, meaning more than 10 rounds. The very next day, you were a criminal if you didn't give the state your property that you bought and paid for and probably paid taxes on. They turned people who did not want to obey an order from some scumbag and likely pedophile politician. They turned into criminals because of their whims, not because the people were doing anything wrong. So now in these states, you can be intruded upon by the government, specifically the enforcement branch of the government, your local police department. And they can come to your door, demand that you hand over your property, and if you don't, if you refuse to comply, well, you know what their favorite saying is, right? Comply or die. And you could say you have recourse. You can open fire on these criminals, but you would be called a terrorist if you did, or some other derogatory name. But terrorist comes to mind. I mean, just look at the Boston bombing, for example. Look at the Parkland shooting. Physically impossible for it to go down the way they said it did. And that kid got charged with shit that he didn't even do. Just like the Boston bombing brothers. Those dudes didn't do the Boston bombing. But because the state said you did, without even providing proof, and if they did provide any proof, it was highly flawed. Just like, you know, the 9/11 attacks. So what makes the government so much more dangerous than any of these diseased criminal immigrants is the fact that the government can act in a criminal manner, and the brainwashed masses would see it as a legitimate function of the government. Thus, limiting your ability to recourse. Now, if, let's say, one of these immigrants decided they wanted to rob you, and you kill them because they are trying to rob you, very little is going to happen to you. I mean, yes, you might go to county jail for a few days until they examine the evidence and find that it was self-defense. But even sometimes, when you're defending yourself, you still end up in prison. How many times how many officers end up in prison as a result of murdering somebody? Not many. I mean, yes, some of them end up going to prison. There's one on the Free Thought Project who got sentenced to 4 years for murder. It's 4 years. While you or I, we would be sentenced to at least 20. And his first few days in there, he got attacked, and rightfully so. But I would rather deal with a bunch of immigrants and their diseases than I would a government, a body of people that you can't hold accountable. And if you do try to hold them accountable, you're a conspiracy theorist. You're a criminal. You're some other shit. Which leads me to my next... Oh, I already did a video on that. My bad. My bad. I was going to bring up the idea this other politician had in Illinois. He's trying to get a bill through that would require politicians to wear body cams. How likely is that? And then, say you defend yourself. Say you don't kill the officer, but you still fight him and you win. Well, then you have about 20, 30 other officers waiting in line to kick your ass. You see, the government is far, far more dangerous than any immigrant can be. I mean, we're talking about people that will end up trying to take your weapons from you. Will kill you if you don't comply with their orders. We're talking about people who want to mandate forced vaccinations and can do it with no consequences. So who's more dangerous? The fucking immigrants? Or the government? Or the politicians? The cops? I don't think it takes much thought to come up with the answer to that. So, all you government sycophants, you're just as guilty. You have just as much blood on your hands as they do, because you support them. And I think when things go down, and they will go down, when shit goes down, I think you should be punished just the same as the politicians. I think your blood should water the tree of liberty, just like theirs. I mean, look at Donald Trump's followers. This dude could... We're talking about a man who kisses his fucking daughter with more passion than his wife. You tell me with a straight face he's not a fucking pedophile. We're talking about a guy that's in debt to the tune of billions of dollars to a bunch of Jewish bankers. Just saying. But man, anytime you say anything about Donald Trump in front of some of these people, they lose their shit. They get triggered, and they're just as bad as the fucking liberals who get triggered over racism. Non-existent, more or less, racism. Now, how many of these events are going to happen that end up being staged before some people get off of that stupid racism shit and understand that these are tactics to divide the common people so we have no strength against the tyrants? So, I don't know what to tell you except that I'm not for all these motherfuckers coming over here from Mexico and Honduras and all these other places. But they're still not nearly as dangerous, not even close, as your own government. And that will include all the way down to your local city government. And the only thing that we can do to get rid of these people now is spill blood. That's it. There's no getting rid of them any other way. Something maybe you should think about before you go to the voting booths and vote for these fucking criminals. And they have the nerve to call someone like me a criminal because I like weed. And I like mushrooms. Anyway, thought I'd chat with you today about that, about why you should fear the government way, way, way more than any diseased criminal immigrant. And it should be obvious to most people. But cognitive dissonance and Stockholm syndrome prevents people from seeing the truth. Serious psychological disorders. And nobody is being treated for it. I wonder why. Kill the state. Live free.